Let's move on to our afternoon session. This is I must be honest, I did say right at the beginning of the conference that I was looking very much to this session because it's really much what I do, which is financing economics. And the session is about the future of development financing from aid cuts to adaptive sustainability. So without further ado, I'd like to call upon the moderator for this session to come up and take us through. So please, a big round of applause for the Executive Director, Transparency International Zimbabwe, Tafadzwa Chikumbu. He's walking far, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a big round. He's got a long walk. He's got a very long walk. Yeah. He says that I'm vertically challenged. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Thank you. So our session this afternoon is going to look at the future of development financing from aid cuts to adaptive sustainability. The world's ability to confront global challenges is being stretched to its limits, overlapping climate security, political, social, and economic crises. They continue to deepen, and it affects vulnerable communities. These pressures are further constraining the international community's capacity to mobilize adequate resources to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, the annual financing shortfall is estimated at $4 trillion USD, a gap that continues to widen as needs grow and available resources shrink. In this context, value for money, cost efficiency, effectiveness are no longer optional, they are now essential. Many civil society will agree that their financial position has deteriorated significantly since the last retreat in 2024. Some organizations have downsized, others have suspended critical programs, and a few have closed completely. These realities underscore the importance of sustainable, predictable financing for civil society work. Historically, global leaders have convened to advance solutions for financing development, from the Monterrey Consensus of 2001 to the Doha Declaration of 2008, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda of 2015, and the most recent Financing for Development Conference 4 in Sevilla in June 2025. These platforms have played a crucial role in shaping how the world funds the then MDGs and how they would also fund the now SDGs. I strongly believe that civil society needs similar dedicated platforms or spaces to collectively engage on the shifting funding landscape and to create strategies for resilience. Given the challenges in global financing since the start of the year, discussions around innovative financing models, sustainable funding, strategic partnerships, resilience, value for money, donor compliance, and donor confidence has become more urgent than ever before. To help us unpack these complex issues, allow me to invite Melanie, who is the Resource Development and Donor Engagement Director of World Vision, to give us some insights in terms of the shrinking funding and how we are navigating this space. Let's give a round of applause to Melanie. I'll also give you an opportunity to fully introduce yourself as she takes us through the discussion.
Thank you very much. I need a moving mic so that I can move. That's why I'm based behind there. So thank you very much for giving me time, welcoming me here and giving me some space to talk about my day-to-day business. Protocols observed. Thank you so much to the host, Honorable Minister, Mr. Tirivavi, good old friend by now. My name is Melanie, and I claim to be a half Zimbabwean because I spent a quarter of my life in this country, as much as in Zambia and as much in South Africa. So I have worked a lot with local organizations as an advisor, building, developing organizations and helping out when it comes to fundraising mainly, but also other issues. Now, for a couple of years, I have worked in Germany as a disaster management head. I was traveling into crisis areas. I've spent some time in the Ukraine after the war broke out. I have been to Myanmar, I have been to Indonesia for nature hazards. And then we came back here, I think almost 3 years ago, and we are here to stay. I'm working for World Vision as a director for resource development and donor engagement. And I would wonder how many organizations that are present today here have a position like mine. And I want to spend some time, I know there is some hurry, but I want to spend some time to also talk about the investment that is important and the reasons why, or my reasons, and you will hear and you will have your own, why we hardly find these positions in your organizations. So fortunately, unfortunately, I had a couple of these slides already presented 1.5 years ago. But it's the same, not on this spot. It was a different conference, but it was together with NGOs, and some of the things are still relevant. But first of all, I want to talk about the 8 cuts. We are people that like to talk about what concerns us, where we want to complain. For example, I believe no one in this room has not spoken and complained and have been concerned about the weather during lunch. So, but these are things that are actually beyond our bubble, right? When we are writing our proposals and we talk about risk, we talk about those risks that are in our bubble, that are under our control, and then we like to talk about those items that are beyond our control. So I think we are going through this analysis, but the most important one for me is the self-analysis, because it's time for us to stop complaining about what happened, trumping and so on, but talk about what can we change, what is in our control when we are talking about the future of humanitarian assistance and development. So that is my brief agenda. The trumping analysis, I think it's a new word that no one has known before, but before I go into, I won't spend a lot of time on this because everyone knows by now, right? So we had a stop order cut of 41% in March, and then later on the amount even raised. It's not even easy to find those figures, but this is what we have. So I do a comparison on number 1 at global, and then we are talking about Zimbabwe. So in 2022, US aid was funding around 400 million to Zimbabwe, then 310 in 23 and 428 in 24, whereas Zimbabwe was ranked by US aid at number 14 of 48 countries that they supported by then. That is not far away, but it sounds like it's ages ago. Then the cut went down, and those are figures from August this year, down to 31.5. So the year is ending for the Americans in September. We believe it's a bit more, but around that figure, so it will help us. And we were ranked now 21, country 21 of 42 countries. So they completed funding in 6 countries, and we moved down by another third. So means Zimbabwe is not a focus area country. Now, in 2024, 270 million out of the 428 went into health. And that was 63%. And even today, when we are talking about the 31.5 million for this year, 80% still goes into health when we are talking about US aid and the trumping analysis. But I also want us, please bear that graph in mind, right? So we are with US aid, we had stage of 2006. The funding in 2006 was around the 30 million in this country from US aid. So you can also see, bear this graph in mind that makes this type of curve. We need it later. Now, I want to go a bit more global and look into other foreign assistance. I know donors are around, you can complain if my figures are not actual, but as I mentioned, not easy to find, and I believe we are close by. So the UN in January 24 announced an annual gap of 529 million US dollar in 23. That was way before Mr. Trump, and I don't want to excuse him, but that was way before Mr. Trump was elected, right? So the UN was clearly gapping funds from their tax-paying countries, membership countries, and that traced and traced. So at that stage, the UN80 initiative had been founded and was launched in March this year, coincidentally, not coincidentally, around the same time as Mr. Trump stopped funding under US aid. So that means that is an effect of the funding gaps we are realizing. So it's not all Mr. Trump that cut funds, but other UN agencies, other donors, the European ones, they also stopped funding. They just didn't do it in that correlated way of from one day to another like Mr. Trump did. So in Zimbabwe, those are the global figures. Let's talk about the EU elections. They have been last year and took really some time until funds have been allocated. There have been elections in Germany, there have been elections in Canada, there have been elections in the UK that all delayed even annual budgets, and later on also related into decrease of budgets. Again, these are August figures, but by today we know even that some of this has been even further reduced. Just as an example of the FCDO global reduction from their global national income. So maybe some of you have heard that it was reduced from 0.5% to 0.3%. That doesn't sound critical, but if you count it for funding that is available in their country, because they are taking this 0.3% from the taxpayer in the UK, it would turn out to 14 milliards, from 14 milliards to 8 milliards. But we also have to bear in mind that Europeans struggle with inflation, economic struggles, so hence tax funding is also going down, and if tax funding goes down, even the 14 milliards would go down. For Zimbabwe, we have the global fund that was reduced. Actually, I heard the figure a couple of days ago. The current funding was reduced by 11%. But however, there is a couple of years funding still available and the new cycle to be decided on how big that will be. The EU institutions allocate funding for a couple of years up to 27, whilst ECHO, so when we say talking about the EU, we are talking about the development stream INPA, and then we are talking about the humanitarian stream, which is ECHO. They withdrew already last year their funding to Zimbabwe. The only opportunity we have to raise funds with the humanitarian angle under the EU delegation is through multi-country funding. But even for this year, for the multi-countries in Southern African region, has been reduced by 3.5 million compared to last year. Then, as mentioned, also FCDO had in 2024 40 million US dollar for Zimbabwe. It went down to 19 million in 25. Even see that it's similar jumps. And again, I want to show you that graph. That is FCDO. And I just want you to see again that it's very little, but where the figures go up, that is 2006. And then it goes up, 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 up. And then for a couple of years now, 2020, 21, it's going down. But bear this graph in mind that goes up like this, because I want us now to start about the self-analysis. Again, I checked on the global, UN estimated 4.7 billion people, billion was needed to support 31 million people in 26 countries in 2006. Then in 25, we have $4 billion needed for 308 million people in need. That's both 10 times higher. You see that? Between 2006 and 2025. For Zimbabwe, I only marked a bit of yellow to see. 2006, it was 2.9 million people in need. Now, last year, 2000, or this year, early this year, 7.6 million. So again, this curve. So we see money was growing between 2006 and need was also growing from 2006 onwards. So I want us to spend a second on this. Can we please all reflect on what we are doing right and what we are doing wrong? Money is growing, but need is also growing. Not only Zimbabwe, globally. I believe you could go in any country, you would see similar figures. And what is our aim? What I realized when the Trump order came, whom were we worried about during the first Trumping? Whom did we talk about? We spoke about ourselves, spoke about our jobs, the poor NGOs, the poor NGOs. I have only heard once, and I spoke to many people, only heard once from one donor. What about the people in need? But we need to become honest with ourselves. Do we really strive for independency, or do we keep the dependency? The UN funding ratio is, and again, UN might be in the room, is the other way around. We are talking very often about 70 for operations and 30 for support, right? The UN is the opposite, 70 for personnel and 30 for operations. So we need to, all of us, go back into this. And it's about the models and approaches we are using. We talk about let's do no harm. But if we keep on handing out to people, do we really work on independency, or are we more or less interested in our industry? There is a deep difference between charity or help to self-help. When we are talking later about models, innovations, and approaches, we need programs, people here who are telling us what is people, what is helping them to not wait for World Vision to come back. Our goal is not to stay, and we are here for 52 years as World Vision, but our goal should not be to remain another 52 years. We want to be a middle-income country. So what have we done wrong? To use more money and create more needs, at least not keeping it on a level. And I think if we get honest with ourselves, we may find new ideas to go back to 2006. Because in 2006, many elderlies here may have not complained the way we are complaining about the cutting today. I have to hurry up, sir. Okay, I just want to give you a couple of slides in terms of sustainability and resilience. So shifting development, financing structures. We always talk about diversification. I have a slide for fundraising, restructure, and agility. I'm trying to speed up a bit, but we talk about different funding streams. So we have the governmental grants, yeah, we call them bilateral. We have direct interaction, either with the government in Zimbabwe or governments outside. We have the UN and other multilaterals, African Development Bank as one example aside of the UN organizations. And we have the national government mentioned earlier. Then we talk about the private sector, foundations, high net individuals. We can do events, we can do crowdfunding. What is important when we talk about diversification, that we are intentional. It takes time to build relations to donors, it takes time to build relations to private foundations and so on. So don't overdo it at that stage. But what is important, that you keep your cake like shared. This is an example of this year for World Vision. Just for you to understand, 41% of our donors have been multilateral, 32 have been private, and 27 have been bilateral. And below there, I also give you a funding scale from, by then, 24 awards in this year, 16 came from different donors. So that is diversification. And it might be that you have a donor for 100,000, or you have a donor for 10,000, or you have one for 1 million. Important is that you remain shared services. You don't need to lift your hands, but I have spoken to a lot of CSOs that had one color on this lower shade, and it was all USAID. Right, on the right hand, my favorite words that I hear since I'm doing this job. We talk about low-hanging fruits. People are telling me there's no funding for funding. Yeah. Then they say, oh no, it's Melanie's job. It's resource development who has to do that. It's all mine. Some come and say, this funding is too small to even start with. Others are telling me, the NGOs are taking it all. There's no space for us as local partners, right? And then we don't have time. And the main word to everything is just. It's just one proposal, it's just one new donor, it's just diversification, it's just. But when we talk about fundraising, we need to be intentional, as I mentioned. So we need to have clear responsibilities. And I know this is a directors retreat, hence I'm quite happy to have the directors listening to me. That is actually mainly your job. All this fundraising stuff has to be done by you. The donor engagement has to be done by you. You cannot send your intern, you cannot send your volunteer to a high-level donor engagement meeting, right? You need to prepare yourself, do your donor mapping, understand the market in Zimbabwe, understand, for example, that the most important sectors paid or strategized by donors in Zimbabwe is health and nutrition, wash, and livelihoods. Livelihoods together with climate change. So two-thirds of all donors that are funding Zimbabwe are having this, one of the three sectors in their strategy. So you need to do your homework on that one. So understanding why, not why is gender not important anymore, but understanding what is important and how do I mainstream gender then into what is important to me. We need to develop tiers. So which donor is for you the most accessible one, the one that you can reach out without any NGO blocking you to do so? What is the donor that has a strategy that is very close to your own strategy? Don't reach out to those that are looking for climate change while you are concentrating on child protection solely. Doesn't help you. You are not going to change the strategy of your donor, and you should not change yours. Then check on the win probability. So whom are you working with? Who can go together with you on this type of fundraising and sustainability? Have a roadmap for a local fundraising strategy. Where do you want to be in 2 years? Do you think you can make local fundraising money of, let's say, 10,000 in the next 3 years? So if that is your goal, set your steps before you are reaching there. Be serious about what you need to invest and then discover the return of investment. This, I think the private sector available here will know this type of management processes. This is very typical for private sector to set up their strategy like this. But I wonder how often us in NGOs are setting up these structures. Understanding there's a demand, there are people in need on the left side, and this is what we are going to deliver as our service or as our target group, together with our stakeholders or towards our donors. And then you see that is, I'm not going to explain very deep dive, but you have management processes, you have key processes. So those are the production processes in private sector, right? This needs, what is blue there, key processes, is what you need to deliver the service that you want to provide. So that's the process line, key processes. And then you have supporting processes, which is IT, administration, and so on. So wherever you find an X here is where fundraising plays a role. And that is like out of the boxes that you find here, quite often half of it. So when we talk about resource acquisition, When we talk about proposal development and contract negotiation, visibility and networking, donor and partner engagement, and the management during implementation, right? Cooperation agreements, relation management, implementing and reporting. At all these stages, you're engaging with donors, potential donors, future funding, pre-position and now funding. So this is where you talk about grant acquisition and donor engagement. So a couple of points to this is, I think I mentioned already a bit earlier. Thank you. Are we in alignment with the trends? Like I said, what is important in Zimbabwe? What is the government interested in under the NDS 1 or upcoming 2? And what are we good at? Don't develop new wheels just because you believe, oh, climate change is the thing of the next year, but we haven't done it. Others have already done it, right? So work with what you are good at and think through what you could stop doing. If there is anything where you feel like we are losing a lot of time, we are wasting a lot of time, we are not reaching here, or maybe it's not the topic of tomorrow anymore, then become lean, become focused. Last but not least, and a couple of things have been already mentioned, being intentional doesn't mean you have to knock the door of any UN bilateral and multilateral donor in Zimbabwe tomorrow. But you should be intentional and build a relation. If you want to marry, you just don't date once and then you go for your wedding, right? You date more often if you're serious. Right? And then you have the small houses around, but it gets very expensive and very exhausting. So sometimes it's good to be intentional, have one wife, one husband, and cater for that one, right? So, and then have a forecast. Think through, what do you want to achieve and what is feasible for you to achieve in the next year? Be clear, what is your target, because then you and your team, you can strive for something. Yeah, and invest. I have a job, I'm not asking for one, but have this position that I'm holding. Try to have someone who is helping you on this resource development, on this donor engagement, on this forecasting, and on the follow-up of quality proposal writing. People were starting to cut off in their offices. Money is getting tight, so we are removing her, we are removing him, we don't need them anymore. What is happening? When I was at kindergarten, we had like a paper like this, then you would fold it in the mid and you start cutting off. Then you open it and they told you it's a nice blanket, look at this. Remember that? Did you do the same? But you're cutting holes into that paper. And that hole will not hold anything. You cannot even draw about it anymore. Then someone gets angry because you're drawing on the table. So don't cut your team. Sit and realign your team. Have rather a lean team where you can add on afterwards. Instead of just removing someone out of the mid, you will fill the gap. And then very soon you cannot even say anymore whom can we still release. It's impossible because we are 20, but there is a big hole in the mid, right? So rather see what can we bring together, because that position is not as important anymore as before, not so many tasks, so we can bring that together, right? If you had formerly an HR person that was covering for 50 people, and now due to Trump and whatsoever, you are down to 10 people. Do you need 100% HR person? Or can that person do something else instead of removing that person, right? But can it be merged with admin, for example? So think through on how you can be a bit more creative. Someone said formerly it was a luxury. I think you said it, that the luxury of having blown up fundraising offices are over. Rather do something than everything, right? Even when we talk about diversity, it remains important for you that you're intentional and what you are good at and don't overdo it. 2 minutes, I'm done. Oh, I have 5. Now I'm relaxing. Okay, what I don't like, and that is my last bullet here. As I mentioned, I have been to many countries. and stayed even a couple of years partly or months in those countries. And I need to say I've never seen a country that is working in silo like Zimbabwe. Everyone works on her or his own. People are not coming together. There are so many synergies. When I ask about crisis, right, EDI, then we are talking about, no, the private sector helped us. They came later on with blankets. Private sector can be involved in disaster risk preparedness. It's just that we don't ask them, right? They have to, if you are Pick and Pay, you know that your exit point is there, that there are fire extinguishers there. So what if that happens in Mbare market? So let us bring the expertise together. I don't say that I, as an INGO, need to understand how to safeguard Mbare market. I don't think Mr. Ntirivavi has to know this, but we have people even in the room who know this, and this is just one example. We have to work together. I'm being asked by my colleagues, who are the biggest competitors in this country for World Vision? And then I refuse to answer. I don't see competition, we are working together. We work as partners and we learn from each other. And specifically in these times, I think it's very important. If someone else is better in writing a proposal and you are not getting it, the organization was better. This is how we live with it. We should be happy that whatever approach is being offered is being taken. So let us get together, and not only as NGOs, among NGOs, INGOs with CSOs, but also working together with the government, working together with our private sector. I think my 5 minutes are over. I think my slides are done. Let me just check. Yeah, thank you.